Chapter 17, Part 8. In these videos, I've been talking a lot about making sure that the thing you measure and the measuring line are on the same plane. So I want to focus on that idea in this video. It's a little easier to understand in two-point perspective and a one-point perspective. So here's our diagram. We put our measuring line right here, right along the ground plane. It could be other places, like if this was a tabletop, it could be at the level of the tabletop. It's most convenient to put it on the level that most of the things that you're drawing are setting on. So anything on this surface is on the same plane as this measuring line. And it can come out here in front of the picture plane also. So usually when we're drawing things, like if we're drawing a box, we draw it here. We measure it here, and then we project it up. So we can't measure it up here with this measuring line. We would have to pull the measuring line up to the same level as the top of the box, and then we can use that measuring line to measure the top of the box. But personally, I like to keep the measuring line in one place if I can, rather than moving it around different places, but sometimes you need to move it around different places. So this is this plane right here. All of this surface is on the same plane as this line, and you could bring it out in front like this. So in three-point perspective, it's a similar thing. Here's our measuring line. It's our horizontal measuring line. So here, right at the center of vision, this is where we put our measuring lines. So anything that's on this level, you can measure with this measuring line. If something's above it or below it, then you can't use this measuring line unless you raise the measuring line up or bring it down to that same level. So this line and this line, they're on the same plane as this measuring line. You could also think of it in terms of a one-point perspective line, like this. Anything on this surface is on the same plane as this. Let's say I have a shape here, rectangular shape, and it sets on this surface. Then I can measure it with this measuring line. But if it dropped down below or up above, then I can't measure it with this line unless I raise up the measuring line to be the same level as, let's say, the top of this box or the bottom of the box. When we are rotating things along a right axis, this is the surface that is on the same plane as this measuring line. You could also think of it like this. This is coming out. You can measure things in front of this line or behind this line. So if I had a shape like this sitting on this plane, I can measure this with this line. It could be out in front of this or it can be behind it. But something over here, something here, this is not on the same plane as this line. Or if I do this surface is not on the same plane as this line. It's a little hard to visualize. This has a pretty direct relationship to something like this. But when you turn it to the side, it's a little harder to see. So if I took this diagram and turned it like this, I think this makes it easier. So this line, it can continue out like this. These lines, these reference lines, are always going to be on the same plane as the measuring line. And something like this, if I conceived of this rectangle as being on this surface, then this would be on the same plane as the measuring line. And this would be above the measuring line. This would be below the measuring line. So same thing with this one. Here's a corner. It touches the center of vision right there. So anything along this line or this line is going to be on the same plane as this measuring line. You could also think of it in these terms. Here's this big surface. So if I drew a rectangular shape here, and I said it was sitting on this surface, then I could measure it with this line. If I did this, I couldn't measure this with this line because it's on a different plane. Or this. I couldn't measure this surface with this line because it's on a different plane than this. And as before, just we took this diagram and turned it like this, then it's a little easier to see, I hope, that this surface, all of this, is on the same plane as this measuring line. Things up here are going to be above this line. Things drawn over here are going to be below this line. When I turn it like that, it's a little harder to see. So sometimes I'll take my diagram and turn it this way to make